Now let us take a look at the events at the Pentagon on September 11, 2001 through the eyes of a camera and eyewitnesses.
Yeah, a big-ass plane landed into the Pentagon, and then another one was coming right behind it. Big four-propeller, huge gray plane.
What happened to the second plane?
The second plane, it turned off. I don't know why. I'm sorry, I gotta take that. Hello?
Are you guys Dinpost destroyers?
Hello?
I graduated from Dinpost.
I was standing right next to the fucking Pentagon. I swear to God.
What do you got? FRTS?
Right in traffic.
Eyewitnesses to this incident was a TV reporter himself who was in traffic and actually saw the plane come in. I talked to him earlier today. His name is Mike Walter of USA Today Live.
I was heading in northbound on 27 in the traffic this morning. It was, typical rush hour. Had ground to a standstill, and I looked off. I looked out my window. I saw this plane, a jet, American Airlines jet, coming, and I thought this doesn't add up. It's really low, and I saw it. It just went. I mean, it was like a cruise missile with wings. Went right there and slammed right into the Pentagon. Huge explosion, great ball of fire, and smoke started billowing out, and then it was just chaos on the highway.
Here's what he had to say.
I was just casually looking out the corner, out of the window. In the corner of my eye, I saw what looked to be maybe a 20-passenger corporate jet, no markings on the side, coming in at a shallow angle like it was landing right into the side of the Pentagon, and then a huge fireball, perhaps 5 times the height of the Pentagon. And I was on the 5th floor, so we just automatically just ran to the stairs and went down the fire escape.
You were where? You were inside the Pentagon?
No, I was across 395 from the Pentagon in an office tower with, direct view of the Pentagon.
And kind of describe the trajectory. The plane was aimed straight at the building?
It was aimed straight at the building. There was an angle, perhaps. It looked like it was landing. I couldn't tell if the landing gear was up or down. I don't know if it was taking off or landing, but it flew right into the side of the Pentagon, and almost immediately a huge fireball.
Described seeing an enormous fireball. Then heavy black smoke rose into the sky.
And I looked over to the side, and I saw this jet coming in, and it was really low. And it was an American Airlines jet. You could read the AA on the side, silver fuselage, and it kind of disappeared over this embankment here for a moment, and then huge explosion, flames flying into the air, and just chaos on the road.
Maybe a 20-passenger corporate jet, no markings on the side.
Could this be mistaken for a corporate jet? Now let's listen to Mike Walter in 2006.
What happened is pretty obvious. The force of this jet hitting the Pentagon at about 500 miles an hour. What I saw was the actual jet going in,
and it kind of disappeared over this embankment here for a moment.
Wait, he just said in his on-the-scene interview the plane disappeared over this embankment, and now in his 06 broadcast he said that he saw the 500-mile-an-hour plane disappear into the Pentagon, and
the wings were not strong enough to withstand the impact. They folded back, and that's why the jet went in, and that's why the hole that you see isn't as large as you might imagine in another structure.
In the live interview on 9/11, Mike Walter described the color of the plane and the AA logo, in addition to saying the plane disappeared over an embankment followed by a huge explosion. He also said in his 2006 presentation his comment about it looked like a cruise missile was taken out of context. It may have been, but his description of the plane was very detailed for something going by his car window at 500 miles an hour at touchdown altitude. Again, in his 2006 presentation, he is quoted as saying, "What I saw was the actual jet going in, but the wings folded back," and claimed this justified the small entrance hole made by the 757. Does this detailed description seem possible for a guy stuck in traffic trying to get to work? Just asking.
Videographer in Washington, D.C. I've been doing this for just about 20 years now. I do it for most of the TV networks and the local TV stations, and I do take assignments as they come. I began videotaping immediately as I moved into the area. There was a gentleman in a suit, and looking at the video, he appears to be Middle Eastern, probably an employee of the Pentagon, was handling some of the wreckage, a small mechanical arm of some kind that had a joint attached to it, indicating his idea that it may be part of a landing gear. And there was some discussion amongst the other uniformed military people that it was too small, but nevertheless it was just a small piece of obviously something mechanical. As I moved further still, I was focusing on the impact site and the firefighting directly across from the fire engine and the control tower at the heliport. All the while I'm looking for, and again, seeing videotape and photographs and reading information about airplane crashes, I'm looking for wreckage, and I don't see anything discernible. I can't find a piece of anything that I recognize. I can't see the tail, I can't see the wheels, I can't see the engines, there's no chairs, there's no luggage, there's no logo. I mean, for Air Florida, when we shot that, we could see the logo of the Air Florida plane. There was identifiable structure that you could see with that kind of an impact on that aircraft. I moved along. I did photograph a lot of the actual people began to organize themselves. There was some stretcher bearers with some backboards moving into some organized line. I believe they were attempting to go back in the building to do some rescue. This was before the collapse. And they were mustering at the burned out fire equipment on the heliport concrete pad itself. And there's a lot of debris in the foreground of those videos. Again, very small pieces. I mean, I'm standing on pieces, a dinner plate or smaller in size. The largest piece I believe I saw was maybe 2 by 3 feet, and it was crumpled. I believe that is the piece that everybody sees with a blue stripe. Well, or it had red paint on it, red logo, a red stripe. Again, I didn't dwell on that. There was a lot going on.
Now, your video has the best shot of the hole for video evidence. You were right up there. How big was the Pentagon hole? How big could it possibly be?
16 feet diameter, 20 feet tops. Again, I can't. That's what was starting me so curious. As I was trying to find something, there was no marks on the grass. Something never hit the ground. It didn't hit the heliport. I mean, it was a precision or awfully lucky hit. I mean, I don't know how it didn't bounce. I don't know how it hit directly in the side of the building without touching the ground, going as fast as it obviously was going. But I can't believe the thing is more than a garage door. You know, I mean, it was the firefighters are standing in front of it. They're looking up at it and they're just wondering, wonder what's behind it, wonder where it went. And again, I'm looking at the classic airplane crash.
You're now going to look at what Pew referred to as wreckage, or better yet, the lack of wreckage. What do you find in this debris field? A small metal fragment by a guardrail next to the highway and a Pentagon walkway, more like 400 to 500 feet from the impact area. How did this lonely piece of metal get there? Next, you will see a couple pieces of metal that appear to be coming from somewhere on the body of the plane. They have no burn marks and are scattered in what appears to be a random manner. You have a Marine flag exposed after the section of the building collapsed that is undamaged. Strange for something, again, that was a burning inferno. You have undamaged windows only feet from the impact area. You are now looking at the path of a 757 going through 3 rings of the Pentagon with no collapse other than the entry point. You have a nearly round perfect hole in the 3rd ring of the Pentagon made by what we are told was the nose of the plane. The walls are 1.5 feet thick. That means you would need to go through 9 feet of steel reinforced concrete walls to make this hole. Where are the remains of the plane? Just asking. There are many other questionable observations, but time does not permit. You have just looked at the so-called debris field and damage in addition to listening to 3 eyewitnesses and Bob Pugh. They all appear credible, had excellent vantage points from different locations, and all seen something different, from a 20-passenger corporate jet to, I quote, a big-ass plane, in addition to a 4-engine propeller-driven plane, plus an American Airlines jetliner that Mike Walter said it was American Airlines jet, could have been a 737. What does all this mean? Could all the statements be true? If not, someone is lying. Who would be lying and what would be the motive? Could it be no one was lying and they all seen what they said they saw? Were they put in a trance? Or was it a precision aerial drill and a 9/11 magic trick? Just asking. You are looking at the known flight path of American Airlines Flight 77. Does this make sense? Just asking. American Airlines Flight 77 departed Washington Dulles at 8:20 a.m. and reached a cruising altitude at 8:46. The plane deviated from the assigned course at 8:55. Constant efforts were made to contact Flight 77 as it descended to 25,000 feet while making a left turn and heading back east with the autopilot engaged. After the U-turn, the autopilot was then turned off for approximately 3 minutes. Flight 77 then made a descent at 9:22 a.m. and 7 minutes later, the aircraft was 35 miles west of the Pentagon and tracking for the White House. The autopilot was then disconnected and the plane leveled to 7,000 feet. At 9:34, the aircraft was 3.5 miles west-southwest of the Pentagon and made a 330-degree descending turn to the right. At the end of the turn, it was 4 miles out at 2,000 feet. In the next 30 seconds, power was increased to near maximum and the nose was pitched down in response to control column movements. The plane accelerated to 500 plus miles an hour and struck the Pentagon at 9:37 and 45 seconds. At a newly fortified section of the Pentagon with very few people inside and not scheduled for full occupancy until a later date. The plane did not touch the ground but managed to enter at the first floor. Quite a feat for someone who was not qualified to solo in a 2-passenger single-engine prop plane. What was going on at the White House during the attack? Let us listen to Norman Mineta explain what was happening while he was with Cheney in the White House Presidential Emergency Operations Center.
Just a moment on the Presidential Emergency Operating Center. You were there for a good part of the day. I think you were there with the Vice President. And we had that order given, I think it was by the President, that authorized the shooting down of commercial aircraft that were suspected to be controlled by terrorists. Were you there when that order was given?
No, I was not. I was made aware of it during the time that the airplane coming in to the Pentagon. There was a young man who would come in and say to the Vice President, the plane is 50 miles out. The plane is 30 miles out. And when it got down to the plane is 10 miles out, the young man also said to the Vice President, do the orders still stand? And the Vice President turned and whipped his neck around and said, of course the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary?
The flight you're referring to is the
flight that came into the Pentagon.
Yeah. Let me see if I understand. The plane that was headed toward the Pentagon and was some miles away, there was an order to shoot that plane down.
Well, I don't know that specifically, but I do know that the airplanes were scrambled from Langley or from Norfolk, the Norfolk area, and but I did not know about the order specifically, other than listening to that other conversation.
But there very clearly was an order to shoot commercial aircraft
Subsequently,
down.
I found that out.
With respect to Flight 93, what type of information were you and the Vice President receiving about that flight?
The only information we had at that point was when it went into when it crashed.
I see. You didn't know beforehand about that airplane.
Did not.
And so there was no specific order there to shoot that plane down.
No, sir.
But there were military planes in the air in position to shoot down commercial aircraft.
That's right. The planes had been scrambled, I believe, from Otis at that point.
So let me see if I got this straight. Mineta said while in the Presidential Emergency Control Center with Dick Cheney, a young man had an exchange with Cheney warning of Flight 77 headed towards the Capitol. He said this on 3 separate occasions. The young man also asked Cheney, quote, does the order still stand? Cheney's reply in a condescending manner was, have you heard anything to the contrary? What was that order? A stand down or engage? Just asking.